Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to IBM Developer Tech Talks. On this Tech Talk, we're going to teach you how to use NASA data as well as IBM Watson to help predict wildfires. My name is Anamita Guha, and I'm a product manager at IBM. I work on a team called the Watson Developer Labs and AR/VR Labs, and with me I have Scott D'Angelo, and I will have him introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Scott D'Angelo. I'm a developer advocate. I build code patterns that demonstrate how to use Watson services or Watson platforms like Watson Studio. That's what I do.
Cool. So today Scott's going to help us take us through how we'll use Watson Studio and Watson Machine Learning to train a model with NASA data so that we're able to predict the intensity of wildfires.
Yeah, so all of our code lives in GitHub here at github.com/IBM. This one is predict wildfire intensity. And the code patterns itself contains a README that gives step-by-step instructions. We've got an architecture diagram that describes the flow between the user, the web UI that you will build, Watson Machine Learning Service, and Watson Studio. So to begin with, you'll need an account on Watson Studio, which you can create at the free tier, available to anybody. And you'll need a Watson Machine Learning service, and we'll teach you how to build that. We're using Node.js for our web app, so you'll need Node.js and NPM. And then you're going to need to download current wildfire data from NASA in CSV format. So that lives here at this site that's linked to, and you can pick for your particular area, but the map we're using is a US-based map, so we'll want you to go ahead and grab the 7-day data from the USA portion here. All right, first thing you want to do is clone the repository that we're in. This is why we like to do this offline. All right, so we've got our repository cloned. You've got all the things you need here to run things. Back here in the instructions, you'll go to Watson Studio. And create a new project. Just grab the complete version. Give it a name. Select some storage from, if you haven't already created a object storage instance, you'll be creating one right here. And then
What does Watson Studio do?
Watson Studio is a platform that allows you to create projects. Your projects themselves can use any of the Watson services or any of the other IBM Cloud services. You can run Jupyter notebooks. You can use RStudio, Modeler, any of the tools we have. It's basically an all-in-one platform for anyone from the free tier to the enterprise to create projects, share projects. From within the project itself, you could do things like deploy your machine learning models and access them via REST API. Wherever I was, we got a project maybe. This one I just created, no, maybe this one. All right, so you created your project here. We're going to add our data. Let's get this out of the way. So here's the Find and Add Data Asset tab. You can also click Data Asset here, and it'll bring up this tool. You can drag and drop, or you can go through the Finder here. I'm running on a Mac. And this will upload the data and put it into your data assets.
Do you recommend using the 7 days versus the other more data available, or?
Well, no, this is the most days. There actually is a data set that you can download, and let's see if I have it in here somewhere. There's an archive data set that you can download that gives you data going back years. And if you wish, you can pull this in as CSV file. You'll have to enter your email address, create the request, and then it'll take them a couple days to get back to you. So you can use this larger data set, and it's linked right here. I should have mentioned too, you'll need a Maps API key from Google Maps because we use that for our user interface. Okay, we are here. We've downloaded our data set. Now we want to go to settings, and under services, we can add a service. We'll add Watson, machine learning. So we've got our Watson machine learning service. Now we need to add Spark, which is the kernel we'll use to run this. You can create a new one, or I will just use my existing one if you have an existing Spark service on the Watson Studio platform. That's not what I want. Something with my name on it. That's already there. Okay. And we've got the data. Oh, okay. So now, let's see if we can fire this up from here. It's always hard to get to your machine learning instance. Oh, under assets, model, new machine learning. All right, so we select our label, which is brightness, and our features, which are latitude and longitude, linear regression model. All right, once the model is trained, we can save it. Next step will be to deploy the model. So we can go back to our project here.
Deployment, I think, is at the model page. So when you go to,
Yeah, how do I get back there? It's gonna be from here. But is it added? Oh yeah, here it is. Add deployment. And it'll be in initializing state until it's deployed.
so what does the stage mean? Like, what did we just do and what does deploying it mean?
So deploying it means it puts it out onto a server so that you can actually access it via a REST interface. So here's the scoring endpoint that will make that machine learning model accessible from your application. If you look at the implementation details here, you can see that it gives you instructions for how to use this with curl, Java, JavaScript, Python. We're going to be using JavaScript and Node.js for this application, but it'll kind of give you the instructions on how to do API gets, posts, whatever you'll need to do from within your code in order to use this scoring endpoint. So what we'll do now that we've created our machine learning model, we need to get the service credentials for our Watson machine learning instance. Let's see. Unfortunately, Studio doesn't let us get to that. We have to go back to the dashboard. So we want our Wildfire ML service. We have to access this from our IBM Cloud dashboard. Don't know of any other way. So we can go to our service here, and under service credentials will be all the credentials we need to use our service. These are not things that should be shared on the webinar, but unless you want to black these out somehow. But basically, you can copy these off, save them somewhere, and then we'll use these either in a web app or running locally. So there's two ways to deploy this application. We're going to use the credentials we just saw in the Watson machine learning service, as well as our Google Maps API key. So the simplest way is to deploy to IBM Cloud. So if you click this button, it will create a tool chain that will deploy the application out on IBM Cloud, run it in a container, actually, as a service. You give it a meaningful name, pick your region. I like US South. Not sure what it's doing here. There we go. And you need to create a Cloud API key. And then deploy your app. And this will create a tool chain. It will clone the Git repository, deploy a server. If you wish, you can follow the deployment as it goes by clicking on the delivery pipeline tile. going to take a minute. I can get you something that will be. This isn't quite how that thing will end up. Let's see here. Where's it good? So once this thing has deployed, you can view the logs. And see that everything deployed nicely. Oh, this is it, deploying live. There we go. So you can watch the deployment as it goes. Takes a few minutes. When completed, we'll have a running service that we can visit. And where is it? And it will look like this. Let me figure out a way. Let me edit. How do I edit this? Well, we'll just wait for this guy. So once this thing is running, there's some environment variables that will need to be set. I don't really want to expose my credentials, so we'll wait for this one. So I can go over the other way to deploy this, which is to deploy locally. And in our code repository here, if you go to the server directory, this is where the code lives. We have a file called env.sample, where you'll place the items from your credential file, the scoring URL that we found after deploying our model, the Watson machine learning URL, username and password, and then your map API key from Google Maps. So the path is to copy this environment sample file to .env, and then edit the .env file and add in your scoring URL, username, password, and API key here. And when you do that, you end up here. And if you run npm install to install the node modules, it will use the package.json file to figure out which module to install, then a quick npm start. We'll deploy this locally, running on port 3000. If you go to your browser, that's not the one. Here. So if you select any point on the map, click on it, see, it will basically look at historical data for that latitude and longitude, run it through the model, and give a prediction of how hot basically a wildfire would burn in that location. If you try it over the ocean, it won't predict the brightness over the ocean, but basically that's how it works. Based on the machine learning's model of the various wildfires that burn throughout the United States, it comes up with a fairly naive answer as to the intensity of the wildfire, which would be measured from a satellite. We go back here. We have successfully deployed our application. There's a lot of data here in this tool chain, but this is not really where we want to go. We want to find this app that we have built. And for that, we go back to our dashboard. Or we'll just edit in this one, I think is fine. Actually, no, we want We want this one.
So the code for the app, where did that come from? Is that already from the README or?
Yeah, well, that's in the repository. When you clone the repository, the code for the app will all be there. So if you deploy to IBM Cloud, it'll take that, it'll clone the repository in a container on the IBM Cloud and spin up the server. But if you do it locally, you get the same results locally. Deploying it locally gives you a little bit more ability to tweak the code a little bit if you're changing it dramatically. If you just want a demonstration of how this works, you can just deploy it to the cloud, and on the cloud you can SSH into the application and make changes. It's all very possible. I like to run it locally if I'm going to do some major changes. So we have our application running in the cloud. If we go over here to the runtime and the environment variables, we can see that we have variables for our map API key, our scoring URL, our password, etc., with just a placeholder in place. So you'll want to get rid of the placeholder and add your map API key, add your scoring URL, which we created over in Watson Studio when we deployed the app, somewhere over here. So if you grab your scoring URL, that would go in the runtime variable for the scoring URL, etc., etc. Fill all these out and save them, and then that will give you the runtime environment you need to use your app. You access it here where it runs on Bluemix. We'll clean it up a bit. And then you click on a region and kind of get some idea of the intensity of a wildfire there. You can kind of see what the machine learning model has predicted based on the historical data. So a pretty naive data set. It doesn't necessarily provide you with as much information as you could if you took some of this data and decided. I've always thought it would be good to figure out how long has a fire burned, how wide has it burned, get some more information that you could then make better predictions about the course of a fire as it developed. That is the app. It's all right here in GitHub, so you can clone the repository. It's open source code, so you can use it in any application you wish.
Awesome. And there's also the link underneath the GitHub that gives you a more like marketing-esque page if you want to kind of see more visuals as you go through it. And on that page, there's also links to other assets that are related. I encourage you all to go to developer.ibm.com to kind of look through all the different resources we have and how you can get started using IBM code. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Anamita.